The Starr D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. Well, welcome to Tuesday afternoon and the live presentation of the Starr and D'Amico Show. Fully rested, fully recovered from our second ever live presentation. Big shout out to the wonderful staff at Maison Publique McLean's at 1420 Peel Street. We will be back there, and it won't be much longer. December 23rd, as we look forward to our next live presentation, but lots of runway between there and now. There's Marco D'Amico, one half of Starr and D'Amico. Marco, last night we reacted in real time to the lineup changes. We reacted in real time to Jakub Dobeš's start, but right off the hop, the Montreal Canadiens to me took a step in the right direction, fighting back from a 3-1 hole and taking a point in a 4-3 shootout loss. Is that a fair reaction, or is that the ultimate silver lining that I believe the Canadiens took a positive step in the right direction despite losing the game outright?
Yeah, I definitely think that when you get to a skills competition that is the shootout, I think both teams were pretty even last night. I think the Montreal Canadiens did a good job of going back to basics in the second and third period, getting pucks to the net, getting themselves in front of the net. And, Josh Anderson, Juraj Slafkovsky, those guys just getting bodies in front of the net. Oliver Kapanen again going to the slot, where he scored. I think now it's 75% of his goals have come from right around the blue paint. So again, going to those high danger areas, they're getting rewarded, and you're seeing more players do it with regularity. And I think that will help drive success. I mean, you look at Lane Hutson's tying goal, that goal does not go in without the net front presence of Juraj Slafkovsky in that setting. So again, I stress and I go back to this. I think the Canadiens are building better habits. Yes, they lost the game. Yes, there are still things to work. But even going back to the game against Boston, I see improvement in the way that they play. I didn't like their first period. I'll be honest with you. I did not like their first period, but I think that was a confidence thing. And once they got their mojo going against Columbus in the second and third period, you really saw them kind of take off and play a stronger game overall.
I agree in terms of the overall reaction to the first period. Even the Zach Bolduc addition to the first line, I didn't think much of it. But what was interesting to me, and I'm curious to pick your brain on this, like the turning point where, I don't know, what was there, 9 minutes left in the first period? I think the Canadiens had a single shot on goal. And then ultimately, I looked at Mike Matheson's game as someone that maybe started to take command a little bit, start to fire a little bit more pucks on Greaves. And for the first time in a long time, it looked like, the Montreal Canadiens were back to going to the net. It was nice to see after Greaves froze the puck. There was a little bit of a gathering of the clan, something I haven't noticed very often. But what do you think happened there at one point where the Canadiens, I guess something clicked mentally? They're like, okay, let's keep putting pucks on net because the shot clock started to turn in their favor a little bit. And I know it's not, the barometer be all end all, but in my mind, there was a little bit of a contrast from how the game started versus how it ended for them.
Yeah, well, I think they got confidence when they tied that game.
That was
right.
A huge
the 1-1 goal. I think gave them legs, because when you get scored on, that first goal, obviously like that hurts considering where they are in their position. But I think that, again, they went back to basics. Like I really think that it all stemmed from the cohesiveness of the Demidov, Kapanen, Slafkovsky line. Like those guys were playing some good minutes at 5-on-5 on the road. They were allowing the Canadiens to play successive lines, and they were driving to the net and they were playing well. I thought Jake Evans had a really good game last night as well. Josh Anderson. The advanced metrics will say that Joshua Roy also had a good game, but I think that's more of the rub of playing with that line. We'll get into him in a bit. I felt like for the first time in a while, the Canadiens' best line was not the first line. I really do feel like that, and I think we'll have the time to discuss the lines and how they went about doing all this. But one thing I could say with absolute certainty is Juraj Slafkovsky, something awoke in him last night. Like there was a fire and whenever he plays with that fire, he makes whatever line he plays on the best line.
Yep.
And it was noticeable to me how those three found each other on the ice quite well. What I would say in the second period, especially, is I felt like Columbus took their foot off the pedal after the 1-1, and they're extremely lucky about that offside overturned goal, even though that was a lucky goal to begin with. But they're very lucky that came within a couple of inches, because they look very rocky after that point, and they luckily came back and scored a couple of goals right after that, or else this was a very, very even game. Where I am concerned still is I feel like the Canadiens are still a very fragile team emotionally. And you saw it after that overturned goal. They had a goal scored, took the lead, another goal scored, boom, 3-1. After that point, you thought the game was going to get away from the Canadiens. The Canadiens came back. So that's something that we haven't seen the Canadiens do in about, I'd say, 2 weeks, is come back from these kinds of deficits.
Yeah.
The last time we saw this was against New Jersey. So that takes confidence in your group to be able to do that. And I felt like the Canadiens showed a lot more confidence in their play and belief that they could come back and win these games with the way that they played in the second and especially the third.
Yeah, lots to tackle there in that statement. When we talk about the perception of Jake Evans, he had a couple of great scoring opportunities. Greaves was there to answer the call. Josh Anderson gets his third goal of the season. And to me, that's going to be something to pay attention to as we move forward here. About the depth of this team rising to the challenge in the aftermath of significant injuries across the board. And the other thing, too, I don't know if you'll remember this, but when we finally got the lines ahead of the puck drop from Columbus last night, we were speculating and wondering out loud on the live presentation about why Bolduc, why did he grab Slav's spot next to Caulfield and Suzuki? And I think part of my reasoning that went through my mind was, is this a spark to Slafkovsky saying, hey, listen, Martin St. Louis probably going to simplify things. He's going to ask Bolduc, and I remember this is what I said, just play a straight line game. See if you can do something, and Slafkovsky's going to watch that. But I thought Slafkovsky had one of his better games last night, and it's funny that he was the veteran on that line with Kapanen and Demidov. But there was that nice moment where he just circled around, dropped a nice pass, and it resulted in the Montreal Canadiens getting something dynamic going in the offensive zone. So, what was it? The spark plug? Was it a kick in the keister? Do you think that allowed Slafkovsky to look the way he did last night?
I think when you play with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki is the play driver of that line. When you're playing on a rookie, that is a rookie line with Kapanen and Demidov, he's tasked with a little bit more of puck carrying, a little bit more of settling the offensive zone pressure. And I think he thrives the more the puck is on his stick. With a lengthier time, he gets more confident. He's able to make plays. And I think, I didn't necessarily like the idea of removing him from the top line.
Yeah.
But if you're going to play him with Demidov and Kapanen, I could understand it as you're trying to get somebody else like Zachary Bolduc going. One thing I will say, though, it is abundantly apparent that Nick Suzuki is not playing at 100%. It is abundantly apparent because that top line is being weighed down. I felt like Caulfield was visible last night.
Yeah.
I was not a huge fan of Nick Suzuki last night. I thought he, understanding that he's playing hurt.
Yeah.
Understanding that, my expectations are not very high. And so, I think back, I believe it's the Zach Werenski goal. I mean, the center of the ice was completely open, be it a miscue from Bolduc playing too low or Nick Suzuki being too aggressive along the end boards. I just felt like they were very exposed as a defensive line. And it does speak it does speak to the Canadiens' ability to be able to roll different lines in different situations. Like I found that the Kapanen line was actually strong defensively, did not hurt the team. I found in those situations and played well against road matchups. So I found that Slafkovsky brought that element to that second line that made them dangerous. Now it's about finding a way to click on that top line. And unfortunately, if he's not going at 100% as Suzuki, you're put in a situation where you're going to need other guys to step up. Luckily for the Canadiens,
yeah,
it was all secondary scoring last night. And I think that's the best part.
It's interesting. Even the advanced analytics that the expected goals were Columbus didn't even get to 2 in the expected goals category. I think it was something like 1.9, whatever. So it was kind of 3-2 in terms of the analytics of the expected goals for, which is credit to the Canadiens who really started to flex and started to take that game over, especially in the second half and the third period. Even Demidov had a glorious opportunity in overtime. How did you think, you just elaborated on the defensive side. How did you think 93 did yesterday?
I thought he was fine.
Yeah.
I don't think he blew anybody away with his performances, but again, like his timing, his puck protection, that's what I'm really looking at. I thought that he was still looking to develop a little bit of chemistry with Slafkovsky, but he was following the play. He was reading it well. They were making things happen. Again, I'll go back to it, but I wish that he would shoot more.
Yeah.
I really, really would, that he would shoot more. And one of the biggest things when it comes to his shot, elevation. He needs to start lifting those pucks, roofing them like we saw him do. We all remember that release, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. It was a gift. But when it comes to the way that Demidov, like his release is excellent. It's about being able to, I wouldn't say necessarily pick those corners, but it's definitely about being able to come off with a little bit more oomph to his shooting habits, I would say, because everyone's expecting the pass. So you can catch goalies cheating a little bit. You can catch defensemen erring a little bit to the center of the ice because they know they're going to have to they're going to have to block a passing lane. Well, when it comes to a guy like Demidov, being less predictable leads to more offense. So I'd like to see him take more shots. I feel like he has a very, very, very dangerous shot, and it's simply now just a question of getting it off with regularity.
Yeah, this is Marcos Tukes Fire. Got the logo on it. I finally got my hands on a Starr D'Amico hat. Put this on today, but it doesn't show up on the screen. But I love this hoodie, man. I love the logo. It looks nice and sharp. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We got more coming, right? Montreal Canadiens are off for a couple of days, and they're back in action on Thursday when they host Ovechkin and the Capitals. Saturday, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that'll wrap up this week, right? Then things get real nasty for the Montreal Canadiens as we get and round the corner of the second half of November and into the juggernaut month that is December. And when we look past this, the goaltending again, Jakub Dobeš. And listen, I mean, there was some discombobulation, let's put it that way, a few times. Jakub Dobeš, bad pass. Matheson, Evans, compounding. Joshua Roy just loses his guy in the middle of the ice there. It's tough to, when you look at Joshua Roy, obviously nobody wants to be too harsh. I think there are a lot of people that want to see this guy succeed, right? Considering how well and consistently well, Marco, the guy has played in the American Hockey League over the last couple of years. But I mean, are we there? Have we landed on the spot marked X that Joshua Roy maybe is a Charles Hudon and that AHL All-Star, but I mean, can he hang in the National Hockey League? Like, what's the analysis on his skill level as it relates to trying to become an everyday NHLer?
Doesn't play with enough dog in his game, in my opinion. One thing, definitely not hard to play against. And when you are in the blue paint and there is a guy right next to you in the blue paint, like your job is to tie that guy up.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when you're being tasked with defensive responsibilities on a fourth line against, the opposition on the road, like this is a thing. If you don't think that you could beat him, then you need to tie him up. You need to remove him from the play. Stick lift, tie him up with your stick, get your skates involved in his shooting lanes, do something. But you can't be puck watching in front of the net like that, to me, it just becomes problematic. And at the end of the game, did I dislike his overall game? No. On the Josh Anderson goal, I thought that he did pretty well in going to the net, causing a little bit of chaos. The puck fell to Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson shot, and that led to a goal. So I thought that he followed well enough.
Yeah.
But you want to see this guy lead in some way from an offensive perspective, right? You want to see him create plays. You want to see him use his vision, use his passing ability, maybe take some shots, right? He had the opportunities last night to be able to do that, and he just shied away or went to the perimeter. And these are some of the same complaints we've had from the very beginning. You have to be able to attack the center of the ice. Now, playing him with a guy like Josh Anderson, who does nothing but attack the center of the ice with or without efficacy, is another debate. But at least, maybe you get that itch. Maybe you learn from that. Because I thought, for example, Jake Evans had a great night last night.
Agreed.
I thought Jake Evans played a fantastic overall game. And it's the kind of game you need from your veteran center in this kind of a situation on the road. I think he showed up. And that's why he got power 3-on-3 overtime time, because he more than deserved it, in my opinion. And so when you have a guy that's safe like that, when you have a guy that drives to the net, and I think he's been playing some of his better hockey this season over the last 3 or 4 games, I like the vision. I like the way that he's going about it. And for a guy like Joshua Roy, you just want him to maybe take a little bit of that game, fearlessly go to the net, take pucks there, take your shots. I just felt like last night, there was one instance where I saw Jake Evans elect to pass on a 2-on-1.
Yes. Why shoot? Yeah.
But so, like, this is my thing. Both he and Josh Anderson are right shots. Passing to Josh Anderson, who would be receiving the puck on his backhand, right? He's not in a position to shoot. There's part of that is situational awareness from Josh Anderson. You should, in those kinds of situations, maybe open up the hips so that you'd be ready to take the shot, even if you're going at 1,000 miles an hour, trying to come down the ice to catch up. Opening yourself up creates or opens up the ice so that you give away the illusion that he may be passing it to you. And so if it does ever get to you, you're there and you're able to do the one-timer. But at the same time, it forces the defenseman to have to play the pass. And so by opening up that ice, Jake Evans then has more of an opportunity to shoot. So again, little details like that, little elements, and that speaks to confidence. But what I like is those guys are taking the puck to the net. They're not going to the periphery. They're charging forward. So I'd like to see Joshua Roy take a little bit of that in his game.
Yeah, as our friend,
I understand. Yes, I understand this point.
Yes, but Recliner Sports, drops the comment. Joshua Roy had a 90% expected goals for last night. Goes on to elaborate. He was on the ice for 17 shot attempts, 4 and 2 shot attempts against. Which again,
but I don't think he had anything to do with any of that.
And that's the question, right? Like, to me, this is the rub with analytics versus taking in data, watching the game. And I'm not saying Recliner Sports just looked at the Jay Fresh's hockey cards and, had the takeaway and that's his contention. But for me, it was more about the line, which leads me into the question about, we saw a new installment of line combinations by Martin St. Louis. Bolduc at the top line. Jared Davidson, again, minimized ice time. Joshua Roy got close to 12 minutes. So is that something that you can anticipate them building off of? Or are we thinking that MSL maybe is going to put the lines in a blender again and it's going to look differently against Washington? Because he did change them in game. He shortened his bench, certainly in the third period. You didn't really see Arbor Jackeye that much. Obviously, the Canadiens have a couple of days off. I think that kind of explains, in my mind anyway, the reasons why. But let's talk about the lineup and whether or not they're going to build off of that looking forward to Thursday night.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the expected goals argument, like Jake Evans and Josh Anderson led the team last night with a 91.8 and an 89.6 expected goal differential. So it's only normal that the third man on that line is going to be somewhere in that vicinity, right? Yeah. Like that's how expected goals works in a game without relativity, right? Like that when you're at 5-on-5, you can't be getting caved in if you have two guys playing at the top of their form and you're the third man on the line. That rarely ever happens. You'd have to be objectively terrible, and they'd have to be objectively superstar level good for those kinds of stats to relatively come in and make it look different. So I think, as I said, Joshua Roy got a lot of the rub analytically from how good Jake Evans and Josh Anderson played. Did he follow them offensively? I thought he did, but I just felt like defensively, their metrics would be close to 100% if he had covered that defensive assignment better that resulted in a goal against. Right. So you also have to take that element when looking into the analytics. When it comes to the defensive side, I mean, they definitely shortened the bench. Jaden Struble is not playing at 100%. You can tell. That's why Mark Del Gaizo was called up as an insurance policy. Jack-Eye, I thought Jack-Eye was playing fine, but they decided to shorten the bench. I get that. They decided to play with their top 4 defensemen, especially their top pair. Like, I was looking at it last night. 24 minutes at 5-on-5 for both Noah Dobson and Mike Matheson. What just absolutely Herculean performance from Mike Matheson yesterday. Again, it'd be with the injury to a guy like to Caden Goalie, it is imperative to point out how important Mike Matheson has been to keeping the Canadiens steady this year, because I don't even want to know what they would have looked like if Mike Matheson was traded this summer.
Agreed. Let's put up our boy Frankie McCumber Jr. In his opinion,
well, let's talk about this.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I put it up. It's time to get another NHL caliber center, 3C or 4C on waivers, or a cheap trade. You can look forward. Members like Frankie can have a look at our video as we talk about. I just wanted to bring to the table, like, I'm a little concerned about the defensive zone coverage. And I know Marco and I have spent so much time, hours at this point cumulatively, about the 2C discussion, I'm a little concerned about D zone coverage, and I wonder if there's a need for more experience. That discussion is up on the channel now. Members get an access to it today. Everybody else tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. But what about this? Renaud Lavoie on BPM Sports on this Wednesday morning talked about how, maybe the Montreal Canadiens are Ken Hughes is basically going to try to help this team out here. How much can you elaborate on what's going on here, as maybe the trade market, maybe Ken Hughes' participation is going to start to ramp up a little bit?
Well, I mean, if I elaborate too much now, no one's going to watch tomorrow. So,
or Thursday. Yeah, we got stuff Thursday too.
Thursday, exactly. So I don't know if you really.
Or how realistic? How about this? How realistic is this? Because let me rephrase. There's a lot of competition. The Vancouver Canucks aren't going away in the rumor mill. The Carolina Hurricanes seemingly are kind of speculated as a team that is poking around too. Maybe the Blues want to vacate. We talked about this yesterday. Steven Stamkos of the Nashville Predators, maybe on the block. Who knows? He scored a nice overtime goal. He's got 4 goals, 2 years left at $8 million. So how realistic is it today that the Montreal Canadiens will be, aggressively looking at acquisitions?
Yes, Steven Stamkos has 2 years after this season left on his deal. Like that's a whopper of a deal.
And he's 35.
When it comes to Stamkos, I don't see the Canadiens making that kind of a trade unless there is retention on that contract.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
So that's one. Number 2, do I think the Canadiens are going to throw themselves into a bidding war for some of the top assets that you're seeing right now on the trade front? No, for 2 reasons. One, and we're gonna dive into this a little bit more detail on Thursday, but the teams that are open to sacrificing roster players right now are not open to making any moves imminently. Number 1, from what I'm hearing. Number 2, the Canadiens are definitely looking for ways to improve this roster. They went and made a pitch to David Kampf, even though Kampf, even prior to, coming to term or convincing the Leafs, right? Because he had to convince the Leafs. Kamp's Jesus, suggested the mutual contract termination. The Leafs weren't initially on board. They decided to do that. And it was already in their minds that Vancouver would be an ideal destination. But the Canadiens made a pitch anyway.
Yeah.
The Canadiens are still working the phones. I mean, I reported this last week that the Canadiens were poking around trying to see what's going on, what teams are trying to do what. I don't necessarily think that a big move is imminent. So what are the options? one of our listeners pointed out quite well: a cheap trade or a waiver wire. Well, there's one guy that everyone's talking about on the waiver wire right now, which is John Beecher.
Correct.
I never thought I'd be having a conversation about John Beecher and the Montreal Canadiens and how that's a need, but here we are. So John Beecher, fourth line center, big body, kind of would bring a different style to the Canadiens, sure. But then we have to look at where the Canadiens are in the waiver scenario. And waivers, I will point out, is based on points percentage, not NHL standings as they are, just like a number of points. So it's points percentage today, the 18th of November, because at 2 p.m., the league will look at who are the teams that put in a claim and where are they in the standings based on their points percentage. So if you look at the Montreal Canadiens right now, they're tied in terms of points percentage with the Detroit Red Wings. The tiebreaker is the points percentage of regulation wins. And the Canadiens have 10 regulation wins in 19 games, which actually surprised me.
Yeah.
The Detroit Red Wings have 9. So the Canadiens are actually above, in this case, the reverse order. So like Detroit would have more priority than the Canadiens. So the Canadiens, out of 32 teams, are 22nd on the waiver wire pecking order. So I would be do I think the Canadiens would put a claim in for John Beecher? I think so. Do I think John Beecher is getting to the Montreal Canadiens? I'd be very surprised when you factor in how thin at center, even with the Camp acquisition, how thin at center the Vancouver Canucks are, the recent injury to Marco Rossi in Minnesota, the injury to Pierre-Luc Dubois in Washington, and all the other bottom-feeding teams that are there as well. You look at, the St. Louis Blues, for example. That's their kind of player. There are a couple of teams that I think are going to put in a waiver claim on a guy like this because he is a former first-round pick, plays with a certain style, strong, good-ish in the face-off circle. This is a guy that could fill a need as a fourth-line player and is still young enough that he continue to grow. So I think that kind of a player would make sense for the Canadiens, but I just don't think that their early season success, for better or for worse, have put them out of the acceptable range for a waiver pickup.
It all makes so much logical sense in my mind, right? Like, again, just want to reiterate here. No one's talking blockbuster. No one's talking about, breaking news type transactions. But I think the motivating factor that allows guys like Renaud Lavoie, yourself, and others to go out there and talk about Ken Hughes looking to help his team. I mean, the root of this discussion, to me, falls on the lap directly of Joe Valeno. And when you looked at the lineup yesterday, moving down the middle, Suzuki, Kapanen, Jake Evans, and then Joe Valeno on a line with Brendan Gallagher and Jared Davidson to round out the bottom 12 for Martin St. Louis' team. I mean, the jury's out at this point. And I don't want, nobody's here. This isn't a mean show. It's not personal. It's opinion. It's analysis. So I'm not here to bury Joe Valeno, but the sample size has grown to the point where I think it makes sense, Marco, that they're looking at all of these options, whether it's a John Beecher waiver wire pickup, if the Canadiens number pops up and he's still available to be had. They need an upgrade on Joe Valeno. To me, that's right up there in the things that need to be done in order just to keep this going. Get an NHL body in there that can play fourth line minutes and manage a fourth line as you would expect someone to do, right? I mean, it's the Joe Valeno's the root of this.
I think the injuries expose Joe Valeno. Like, Joe Valeno to me is a 13th forward in the NHL. And I think that's fair. I don't necessarily see this as like a hot take to say anything like that. I think he's fine given where the Canadiens are. Would the Canadiens be better off playing an Owen Beck or a Florian Jacki in that position? You can make the argument. You can make the argument. Well, I could tell you, AG puts up the question, and I think this is a worthwhile conversation. The real question: why hasn't Florian Jacki or Owen Beck replaced Valeno already? And the reason is because they're not playing well in Laval. That's the real reason. I don't know how many of our subscribers consistently watch the Laval Rocket. I've liked Florian Jacki's last couple of games.
Yeah.
this weekend that just came down.
Yeah.
But the consistency has not been there for him to warrant that kind of a call up. And I'm not saying that Joshua Roy is a master of consistency and a guy deserving of multiple looks at the NHL level. But when Joshua Roy deserves it more than you have to improve your game at the AHL level before you can think about playing at the NHL level. Stylistically, Florian Xhekaj, in my opinion, would have been a better call up than Joshua Roy. But at the end of the day, I don't think they would be doing Florian Xhekaj any favors when he's already kind of trying to find his mojo at the AHL level to throw him into a situation like the Canadiens are, desperately trying to rekindle their confidence, putting in this young guy in the fourth line and just asking him to go out there and goon it up. I don't know that necessarily helps you. So, yes, a guy like Joe Valeno isn't necessarily like blowing the doors off. He doesn't have a point this season. But at the same time, the Canadiens have a long-term vision with some of their prospects where they don't want to rush a call-up. Like, do I think that Adam Engstrom could potentially be a better add to this group right now than an injured Jaden Struble? Yes. But would you be doing the player justice to his development to bring him up right now for a cup of coffee and remove him from the consistency of playing in Laval, getting those reps in, working on his own issues before you bring him up to the NHL level and face a situation where you're playing for a team that's not playing with 100% confidence? Like, that's where I think the experience of Kent Hughes as an agent and working with these young players comes in value, because they have been consistent about not throwing their young players to the wolves like we've seen in past administrations.
The question I would have, just as a follow-up to, your take on Adam Engstrom, like, in my mind, like, if you're ready, you're ready. Like, if the professional hockey minds look at Adam Engstrom and the lines of communication are open when you're asked the question about, give me your take on Engstrom. We're thin on defense, not saying they are, but let's say hypothetically they're thin on defense. Is he an option? Either you are or you aren't, right? And so Jaden Struble is the example. On any given night, Marco plays 12 to 17 minutes. We're not talking about, as an extreme, we're not talking about Mike Matheson minute eating machine that he is this season. But I mean, are you saying that Engstrom wouldn't be able to do that role, play 12 to 17 minutes at this level?
I think that he could, but I just don't know that he would get 17 minutes.
Right. I mean, that's on the high end for Struble in his last 5 games. I mean, that's on the high end.
Do you really want him playing 12 minutes in a delicate environment right now? Mm-hmm. Or do you want him playing 25 minutes as a top pair left shot right defenseman for the Laval Rocket right now?
Yeah.
To make sure to nuance the two things. Where they're 10-5. Right? Like, that's they're looking good. They're at the top of their conference or division right now, and things are going well for that team. Maybe not offensively, they're not maybe an offensive juggernaut, but at least defensively, it's a team that's certainly rounding out, and that's the strength right now, is defensively and in net for the Laval Rocket. So with guys like Engstrom, Reinbacher, and Fowler, they're the ones that are excelling right now, and I would not touch them. I would leave them alone. Not because I don't think that they can do it. And if another injury pops up, obviously someone's going to get a recall. But there's a reason why the Canadiens keep yo-yoing Mark Del Gaizo, is because they don't want to make the same mistake that they made with other prospects that they had high hopes for, that they were yo-yoing up and down, that eventually were just never able to get it going. You look at a guy like Owen Beck. Owen Beck was doing great last year until he got called up by the Montreal Canadiens, lost his confidence playing with the Habs,
Agreed.
Went down to Laval, took him a month to get his mojo going again, and then started looking good right before the playoffs. And then the playoffs was moved to the wing because it was too deep a team. So, like, you want to avoid doing that. You want to leave guys in a situation where they're consistently growing. If your NHL team is having trouble, listen, I don't think they're at the point in their rebuild where funneling a guy that's not ready into a role that is crucial is the best situation for them.
I don't disagree. Ultimately, just, wanted to bring a different point of view to the table. And, so the Canadiens right now are third in terms of in terms of the Atlantic Division, right? Detroit's got 23, Boston's got 24. Bruins lose yesterday, but they're still 8-2 in their last 10, playing some really good hockey. Charlie McAvoy, interesting situation there. Is he going to need surgery after that Saturday night slap shot to the face for Noah Dobson? But what's interesting is, right, like, look at the bottom of the conference. There's the Buffalo Sabres. The separation between Buffalo and Columbus is 4 points. Like, it's just so tight. And look at Columbus. Columbus, they're no slouch, right? But they're also, I mean, everything is so jammed in. All I'm saying is it takes a 2-game losing streak and a 2-game winning streak, and things can be flipped up on their head, which prompts me to put this comment up from our boy Ryerson, right? Before we're done today, I just want to hear Marco's thoughts on the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs have lost 5 games in a row. In 4 of those 5 losses, they've held the lead at one point and then lost the game. What about Toronto, as Ryerson asked, the Maple Leafs tanking for Gavin McKenna with their top 5 protected 26, talking about the draft this summer?
Yeah, so for those that don't understand the question, the Toronto Maple Leafs traded their 2026 first-round pick along with Fraser Minton and a 4th-round pick to the Boston Bruins for Brandon Carlo. That pick is only top 5 protected. So that means that outside of the of Toronto finishing bottom 3 and losing all the lotteries or winning one of the 2 lotteries, that pick would go to the Boston Bruins. However, if that pick is a top 5 pick, the Leafs also traded their 2027 first-round pick to the Philadelphia Flyers for Scott Laughton. So there's a little bit of messing up in that. When it comes to tanking for McKenna, I don't think this is the Gavin McKenna draft anymore.
No,
I don't think this is the McKenna and everybody else draft. I think that this is now going to be the McKenna, Verhoff, Reed, Lind, Belchetz, Stemberg. Like, there are so many top end, high end talents in the 2026 draft outside of just McKenna right now that some scouts are oozing, like excitement about going to scout a lot of these guys, because there's I don't think it's like, I thought last year, 2024, there was a lot of surprising names that peaked, like Brady Martin's having a fantastic year in the OHL. Matthew Schaefer is surpassing everyone's expectations. I mean, if he keeps this up, the Calder is his.
I mean, we're surprised by this, eh? I mean, the 20-game markers here, and like, I wonder if the wall exists. If a wall for an 18-year-old, I wonder if the wall exists.
I think he will slow down, but I don't think he's going to slow down to the point where the Calder won't be his.
Right.
That's what I'll say. Unfortunately, unless he meets like an untimely injury, yada yada yada.
Yeah, because he's going to run away with it, eh? He's on pace to.
Jesus, you could start talking about him in the Norris conversation the first 20 games, right? Like, that's how well he's played. I'm not saying he will. The NHL is a very conservative league when it comes to putting rookies in prime trophy discussions, but I don't think that it's necessarily going to happen. But Michael Misa looked good up until his injury as well. And you have a slew of guys playing well out of last year's draft. But this year, really, like, it looks to be one level above that. And there are so many names at the top of this draft. And the moment that you saw the Canadiens with their slew of injuries, everyone was just like, they can tank because this is going to be a strong draft. I don't think the Canadiens are there yet. I think that they're playing significantly lower than their ability. Like, I thought that they were playing significantly over their ability the first 3 weeks of the season. And I think it's going to even out, and you'll see them in the wild card race. And that's generally where a lot of people expected them to be. What I would say, though, is this draft upcoming is one monster of a consolation prize if anything does happen. That's all I got to say.
Fair.
So I don't think that McKenna, I think there is some luster on McKenna. The generational tag may be getting away just because he is such a small, like, he's 6'1", but he's 160 pounds, 165 pounds. Like, against 24-year-olds in the NCAA, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have a lot of trouble playing the same style you played against the WHL. You're going to have to be a little bit more physically developed to be able to play that style of game. So things cooled down a little bit with McKenna, but that doesn't mean he's not a prize in this draft, but there are other prizes. So I just wanted to address that as we move on.
Here we are coming up on the 40-minute marker of today's show. And Thanks so much for being with us and liking and subscribing to the channel. Your loyalty obviously never goes unnoticed. So thank you so much for being such a loyal supporter and engager on the channel. It's certainly appreciated. We haven't touched on the magic man that is Lane Hutson, who, plus minus whatever, but he had been a -7 in his last 2 games going into the Monday night tilt at Columbus. I mean, his ability, Marco, to sometimes break open games is undeniable. We saw it last year in his run for a Calder. You saw it occasionally over the weekend, puck rushes, picking good moments, strong on the back check. If a Ford didn't pick up his vacated position, right? But nice to see that shot get rewarded. I honestly thought Slavkovsky had tipped it. I really did.
Same. Yeah.
But anyways, he gets credit for his second, and everybody in their system that watches this channel, that watches this team, knows if he can develop a shot, I mean, the world is his. But nice to see that, just that old, that reminiscent version of 48 yesterday, just take the game by the scruff of its neck and say, not tonight, boys. I've got this one a little bit here.
I think we could say balls on this channel. I think
man, he's such a price of admission player, bro. You know,
with the price of tickets at the Bell Center, he's definitely one of those incentives. I'll give you that much. I think one of the things that Hutson and I spoke about on Saturday was trusting in his shot. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to shoot more, but it's just like you hesitate. You're not sure if your shot is necessarily the right to be placed there. You think maybe somebody else with a better shot has a better opportunity, so you pass it away. So I was like, okay, well, maybe is this a confidence thing? He's like, oh, I am confident in my ability, but like, I don't have the best shot. And I remember just like saying, as we kind of moved on to the next point, like, it's not about the power of your shot. It's about where you place it.
Yeah.
And the strategy behind it. And, I'm not saying that I had anything to do with Lane Hutson's performance.
Are you sure you're not taking credit for it?
No. He's a very smart individual. He knows that he needs to shoot more. You've been seeing him try to shoot more. And I think that definitely helped, because you looked at that goal last night, that tying goal. They weren't expecting him to shoot.
Agreed. They gave it to him sometimes.
Yeah, they were they opened up the ice.
Correct.
Because they were expecting that pass to go to Dobson, or to go along the two wings. Yep. So what did they do?
Yep.
The box came down. The 5 players scrunched. But what does that do? It creates shooting lanes, because now the goalie has all these bodies in front of him. Put pucks on net. Slavkovsky's there. Worst case, if you need like a deflection, or if you need just like a quick rebound, but put pucks on net. Go to the high danger areas, even if you're not the shooter. And I think that's exactly what that play was. Juraj Slavkovsky did not get a point on that play, but he deserves all the kudos in the world, because he just made the defensive coverage in that high danger area very difficult, opening up the shooting option for Lane Hutson. But outside of his shot, I think Lane Hutson at the beginning seemed a little nervous. And then as the game kind of calmed down and he was able to kind of take over and get more minutes and get more reps, and you saw them intermingling the pairings at certain points as well, I thought that got his mojo going, and a little bit more confidence in his ability, a little bit more confidence to open up the ice. And I think that is really where you saw Lane at his best, is how he opened up the ice. Like on I believe it was the Josh Anderson goal as well, where he made a move to open up the ice, and then a shot was taken, and then, ultimately leading to Josh Anderson's goal. But I think overall, it's his ability to drive that offense without necessarily hurting the team. Yeah, there you go. He took the shot on the Josh Anderson goal as well. So he didn't necessarily hurt the team defensively. I thought he was one of their most consistent players defensively, and the analytics do show that. But where he was elite was in transition.
Yeah.
And a Lane Hutson that is elite in transition is a Lane Hutson that will be a difference maker at any point of the season, in the playoffs, no questions asked. This is a guy that when the puck is on his stick and he's moving up with confidence, is impossible to defend.
I felt like at one point I was in the hot tub time machine when a rumor crossed my wire, I guess on Twitter. There's so much speculation going on now. This team, that team, these players on the move, on the block. Are the Canadiens sniffing around? Whatever. But I remember it felt like, I don't know, 15 years ago, the Montreal Canadiens were interested and they were going to give up to get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins out of the Edmonton Oilers. And then I saw this pop up on my screen. Sam Montembeault to the Oilers for maybe Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. As Canadian Waterfowler says, can you guys talk about the Monty to Oilers rumor? Marco, it makes zero sense to me. It makes zero sense why Edmonton would want Sam Montembeault. I'm curious. I mean, I don't have the energy to go over it. You can expel some energy if you're so inclined, but why don't you answer Waterfowler?
Well, I mean, fans have the right to ask these questions. Like I'm 100% down to be able to answer them.
About my energy and my output for this.
Well, you're gonna have somebody get Sean Starr some vitamins or like Flintstone vitamins.
Somebody give me some
energy
sleep.
boost.
Yeah,
give me some sleep. Oh my God. These are not rumors. This all began because David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period speculated that the Canadiens could make one of the reasons why the Canadiens have been playing Sam Montembeault so much, even through adversity, is potentially because they're trying to showcase him in a trade.
Right.
That is not the case. That is not the case. The reason why he played so much is because they're showcasing him to Team Canada when Don Sweeney, Doug Armstrong, and Julien Brisebois, who have made a couple, not one, not two, 3 or more trips to the Bell Center to watch Sam Montembeault, Noah Dobson, Nick Suzuki, and the opposition whom they played against, like against Philly, they were definitely watching Konechny and Sanheim. Against the Boston Bruins, they were just there, obviously, because that's one of their Don Sweeney's team is right there. So, like, there were other teams that they were looking at. There were other players as well. But Sam Montembeault is not being played right now to be showcased. Could he be traded? Maybe. But not until Jakub Dobeš can prove that he can be a number one on a regular basis, which, with respect, it's not it. The first 7-10 games of a season is one thing. Come talk to me at game 30. That's when you kind of get a better idea. So
yeah, fair.
I don't think that Samuel Montembeault is making Team Canada with the way he's played either. I mean, you have to look at Logan Thompson.
Yes, thank you.
Tage, Logan Thompson,
Darcy Kemper, Jordan Binnington.
Darcy Kemper, Cam Talbot, the way he's playing as well. Jordan Binnington in no way, shape, or form should touch Team Canada with the way he's playing this season, my honest opinion.
And I keep hearing like he's almost pretty much a lock to make that team.
But I know, but that's where it's reputation over performance.
Hey, that's like we talked about with Sam Bennett, like, how some guys are performing, like a lot of reputation and trust and winning culture, right?
Yeah. So just to finish the point, and so because of Pagnotta's comments, those comments were then warped to state that the Oilers were scouting or looking to trade for a guy like Samuel Montembeault. And obviously with the Canadiens looking for a center, everybody, on TikTok and whatnot made trade proposals of Samuel Montembeault for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Now, there's a couple of things that go wrong with that. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has a monster of a contract. It's such a sweetheart deal that they have no business ever trading that unless they're getting a prime asset, not a struggling asset. And if they were looking for a goaltender that could help them today, they would be able to get one for a cheaper price and with a better output right now than Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as a trade piece, in my 2 cents. So in no way, shape, or form is that in the cards in terms of an actual thing that's happening. Do the Oilers want to improve in net? Yes. Are they looking at the Canadiens for that? Unlikely, with the way that things have been going of late.
Yeah, well said. So Thursday, the Canadiens are back home. They've got Ovechkin and the Capitals. By the way, Ovechkin making history again, scoring a goal for the Capitals as he leapfrogs Gordie Howe for the most goals scored in the same arena. He's got 442 career goals at Capital One Arena, leapfrogging Gordie Howe at the Detroit Olympia as the Grade 8 continues to make history on a regular basis these days. What about the goaltending assignment? Here we are on this Tuesday, 10-1 here. We're going to wrap this up at 12:55. We've got some commitments we need to get to, but Sam Montembeault Thursday, you think?
I would think. I just feel like you need both of them fresh, right? Sam Montembeault hasn't played since Saturday. You can't go Saturday, right? So
agreed. I know.
Yeah. And I think that would make a ton of sense. At that point, maybe the Saturday. Yeah, well, I think that's it. Then you see how Montembeault performs, right? If Montembeault wins, then you have to go back with Montembeault on the Saturday. and so on and so forth. If Montembeault gets blown out, maybe you go back to Dobeš. Like, the scenarios are fluid, right? But the thing that I know is you have to play both this week for sure.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Saturday is too late to put a guy back in. And I found that Jakub Dobeš, like, I think teams are starting to figure it out with him.
Interesting.
I think that's the thing. Like, his exuberant style where he is flopping around and flying left and right, really, like, it's fun because it's exciting. He's such a competitive goaltender. But from a structural perspective, it makes goalie coaches want to, like, squirm, because stylistically, technically, he's it's the emotion is taking over. And I think that's happened a couple of times. So with Montembeault, you try to bring him back in, calm the situation, get some more practice in, because as of next week, Canadians are on the road southwest of the United States.
Correct.
There's a back-to-back in there. There's Vegas, Utah, and Colorado. So
dude, they got Vegas, Colorado back to back.
Yeah.
Bro, that's brutal.
And then they come back and they play a back-to-back at home on December 2nd and 3rd. Yes, we're already talking about December, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I think then it'll be safe to belt out the Mariah Carey. But, and then there's another back-to-back the week after. So they have no choice but to get their goalies in their reps. There is no pick one goalie and have them run with it. That's never going to happen. Not in this schedule, not at this time. And even when they did do that, it came to bite them in the butt last year after Montembeault went down with injury. So I don't think that's going to happen here. What I think will be is a 1-1, and then whoever outperforms plays on the Saturday. And then I think they maybe go back to Dobeš in the first leg of the back-to-back, and then you'll give Montembeault the next. And again, same formula. You see which one of the two played better. You give them the third game that's not a back-to-back.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But ultimately, I mean, to me, it's Montembeault against Ovechkin and the Capitals here on Thursday. And we look forward to that game. Obviously, we'll be here Friday at noontime for the traditional post-game live show. And don't forget, bookmark it, set those notifications for Sunday at 10 a.m. The always reliable Starr D'Amico Sunday morning show. Looking forward to that as the Montreal Canadiens. And we're going to have some expanded views on the reality of the Montreal Canadiens looking to improve their team. Has the sample size in their minds grown enough for Joe Valeno that they need an upgrade at the NHL level for that position? And do they need to make that happen quickly? But ultimately, let's end where we began today's live program, about how the Montreal Canadiens were down 3-1. And the stat going into it, Columbus was 8-1-1 this season when they scored 3 or more goals. And so I love the fact that, I'm positive this morning, loved how Lane Hutson played, like Juraj Slafkovsky's game. The depth, Anderson, Evans had strong contributions as well. But Marco, they took a step in the right direction. Yes, they've lost 4 games in a row. They're third in the division. They've got 23 points, but definitely moving in a better direction. It looks like they've taken a simplified approach to their game, made corrections like we've wanted to see them make, and they got half a result yesterday.
The Oliver Kapanen goal really gave them the confidence to kind of execute their style at 5-on-5. They got thrown off by the overturned goal, and I think that cost them emotionally. Those were 2 quick goals in succession.
Yeah.
But then after that, the Montreal Canadiens took over that game at even strength. And that is an excessively good sign. The Canadiens have been playing with the right details at even strength. It's the scoring, it's the execution that hasn't been there. And I think that comes with confidence. You build on these games, there will be confidence. The one thing I will say, though, very, very impressed, very encouraged by the performances of Juraj Slafkovsky and of Ivan Demidov in their situation. And Oliver Kapanen continues to show that no matter what expectations you put in front of him, especially mine, he is a guy that is playing the right way. He's going to the high danger areas. He's completing the plays of his teammates. And right now, the Canadiens, it's looking quite good when you have a guy like Kapanen, because even when they have to figure out what the 2C of the future is going to look like, if you have him as a sure bet on your 3C, or someone you can bump up to a 2C if there's an injury, that's a huge piece of the puzzle that you've gone and figured out with a Jake Evans signed long-term and a Florian Jacquet cooking in Laval.
Nice to see the NHL doing the Canadiens a solid, by the way, in that game last night, if you all noticed. You can't suck on the power play if you don't get one. So no power plays for the Canadiens.
Wow.
Gallagher got away with a pretty nasty high stick there, but just
Yes,
a
he
couple
did.
of just a couple of penalties. Nick Suzuki looked tired. You don't see Nick Suzuki get bodied. He had some words for Zach Werenski after that contact in the neutral zone. I wonder what's going on with 14, but you don't often see him put himself in that position, you know?
Look, I'll say this.
Yeah.
The Canadiens have no choice but to play an ice and injured Suzuki. In a regular situation on a regular team, maybe they give him some time to relax, but the Canadiens' lack of depth at center are forcing them to play an injured Suzuki. And this isn't the first time. It's basically been 4 years in a row now where Suzuki probably should have sat out. It's one of the reasons why he hasn't gone to play for Team Canada, the World Championships.
I agree.
In fact, the Canadiens' lackluster center depth probably is going to cost him his spot with Team Canada because they're so sensitive about who accepts invitations to go and represent their country for a world championship. But I will say this, if anything happens to Nick Suzuki, this is a bottom 10 team in the NHL.
Well said. Can't argue that. There's Marco D'Amico. Follow him at M and D'Amico. Read all his latest at RG Media. And don't forget, we're going to be back. We've got some good content coming up. We're going to dive deep on maybe some moves the Canadiens might be realistically, keyword realistically, exploring in the not too distant future. And we'll be back Friday live at noontime for a quick reaction to the Canadiens and Capitals. For Marco D'Amico, I'm Sean Starr. Thank you, everybody, for being here and being great in the chat today with your contributions. As always, like and subscribe for daily Habs content right here on the Starr and D'Amico Show. Marco, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.